Hi, Michael Kaiser here from Weil-McLain, talking to you about the slim fit boiler from Weil-McLain. This segment we're going to be discussing boiler piping, or water piping if you will. We're going to talk about it from this end of the boiler. Your supply and your return piping, we supply you with a couple of things. One, a couple of taps on the supply line utilized for your pressure temperature gauge or triadicator and your relief valve. Now the boiler is from the factory pressurized to 100 pounds working pressure. That's the operating working pressure of your boiler. The pressure temperature gauge is maxed out at 75 pounds for ASME standards. That's the right size gauge for that pressure relief valve that you're working with. If you need to operate the boiler in a higher pressure, such as maybe 100 pounds because of whatever height you're dealing with, you are going to need to change the pressure temperature gauge. Now in the back of your manual there is a listing of your part numbers that you need, or check with your local Weil-McLain representative to help you and help guide you with the proper part numbers for that change. Something else you want to be aware of is check with your local and state codes for proper piping with the boiler, such as the size and the type of backflow preventer you need to hook up the potable water that you are coming in with your boiler. Some state and local codes have different needs or requirements for those areas. Something else you might want to work with is check with your local inspectors and see what they might need or might require with additional that comes with the boiler. But keeping in mind that the boiler comes factory set up CSD1 right out of the box. We come with a low water cutoff. Actually, let me stop right there. We actually have two low water cutoffs in the boiler. We have a probe type low water cutoff with manual reset, and we have a temperature that monitors for low water cutoff capabilities right built into the solar control. And both of them have manual resets. Now, we need to test either one of them. It has a test button right on top of the boiler for the inspector to test that. So that'll cover that segment of CSD1. The other part that they're looking for out there is your high and low pressure switches, which we discussed earlier in the component segment. And something else is your high temperature limit manual reset is also CSD1 requirement. But that is also a separate component that is built right into the solar control. So there's some items that you don't need to add that in some of your other manufacturers and some of the competition you might have to add. So that's factory set up right out of the box, low water cutoff, probe type, low water cutoff temperature, high temperature manual reset limit on the supply piping going out. That meets all CSD1 standards for this boiler. To continue with the water piping segment, I want to discuss the boiler's circulator. Again, in the manual, we have listed for you the system piping curve as well as the recommended flow rates for the boiler sizes, whether it's a 1 million or a 2 million size boiler. You have to make sure that you size the circulator correctly. Now again, it does not come with a circulator. You need to size that properly in the field. And our manual will help guide you with the properly sized circulator. Just a reminder, if you haven't read the manual yet, you have to make sure that these boilers are piped primary, secondary on the piping system. And of course, you want to make sure your system piping also follows normal procedures, such as your properly sized expansion tank, properly sized system circulator. That's separate from the piping that comes to and from the boiler with primary, secondary piping applications. Hopefully that's helpful.